Imagine being trapped 100 feet underwater, in complete pitch-black darkness and freezing cold, with ocean water slowly rising up to your chin. You are breathing from a tiny pocket of trapped air that is slowly running out of oxygen. To make matters worse, you can hear the sounds of sharks and barracudas swimming through the flooded hallways right outside your door, feeding on the bodies of your friends. This isn't a scene from a horror movie. In 2013, a 29-year-old cook named Harrison Okene lived this exact, impossible nightmare for 3 days. And the story of how he made it out alive is widely considered the greatest survival miracle in human history. Our story starts on May 26, 2013, at 4:30 in the morning, about 20 miles off the coast of Nigeria. Harrison Okene was the cook aboard the Jascon 4, a massive tugboat responsible for stabilizing oil tankers in the rough waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Harrison was an early riser, while the other 11 crew members were fast asleep in their cabins, locked in behind heavy metal security doors to prevent pirate attacks. Harrison was in the bathroom, getting ready to start the day's breakfast. Suddenly, the ocean turned violent. A massive rogue wave slammed into the side of the Jascon 4. The sheer force of the water snapped the heavy tow line connecting the tugboat to the oil tanker. Without the line stabilizing it, the tugboat instantly flipped completely upside down. In a matter of seconds, the ship began rapidly sinking, plunging 100 feet down to the bottom of the ocean floor. Inside the bathroom, Harrison was violently thrown around like a rag doll. The lights instantly cut out, plunging the ship into total darkness. Freezing seawater began violently bursting through the doors and vents. In a pure panic, wearing only his underwear, Harrison forced his way out of the bathroom into the flooded, upside-down hallway. He was swept away by the rushing water, struggling to find any pocket of air. By pure luck, he was pushed into the ship's engineer's office. Because the ship had flipped completely upside down so quickly, a 4-foot pocket of air had been trapped against the floor, which was now the ceiling. Harrison breached the surface, gasping for breath in the pitch black. He was alive. But his nightmare was just beginning. He was trapped 100 feet deep at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. The water temperature was near freezing. He had no light, no food, and no fresh drinking water. Hypothermia was his most immediate threat. If he stayed submerged in the freezing water, his core temperature would drop, and he would die within hours. Feeling around in the dark, he managed to pull a mattress and some floating wall panels together, wedging them against the pipes to create a tiny, makeshift raft. He climbed onto it, pulling his upper body out of the freezing water. Then the agonizing wait began. The psychological torture of those next few days is almost impossible to comprehend. The darkness was absolute. He couldn't even see his own hand in front of his face. The air inside his tiny pocket was slowly turning toxic. With every breath he took, he was replacing the oxygen with deadly carbon dioxide. But the worst part wasn't the cold or the bad air. It was the sound. Down in the silent depths of the ocean, sound travels incredibly well. Harrison began to hear splashing and thrashing in the flooded hallways outside his door. Eels, barracudas, and sharks had found the sunken ship and were swimming through the corridors, scavenging the remains of his 11 crewmates. He sat there in the dark, listening to the horrifying sounds, clutching a single bottle of Coca-Cola he had found floating in the water, praying for a miracle. Nearly 60 hours passed, 2.5 days. Harrison was fading fast. The carbon dioxide buildup in his tiny air pocket was suffocating him, and he was slipping in and out of consciousness. On the surface, the company that owned the boat finally dispatched a team of South African saturation divers to the wreck. But they weren't there for a rescue mission. After 3 days underwater, survival was scientifically impossible. This was strictly a body recovery mission. a diver named Nico van Heerden swam down to the wreck, shining his heavy underwater flashlight through the murky, debris-filled hallways. Inside his air pocket, Harrison heard the bubbling sound of the scuba gear. He saw a faint, glowing light reflecting off the water. He realized someone was outside the door. He dove into the freezing water and swam toward the light. On the diver's helmet camera footage, which you can actually watch online today, Nico van Heerden is slowly swimming through a corridor when a hand suddenly floats into his field of view. Assuming it was just another corpse, Nico reached out and grabbed the hand, and then the corpse grabbed him back. Nico screamed in sheer terror, completely shocking the dive master who was monitoring the microphone feed up on the surface ship. When the diver shined his light up, there was Harrison Okene, staring back at him, miraculously alive. But finding him was only half the battle. They couldn't just swim him to the surface. After spending 3 days at a depth of 100 feet, Harrison's body had absorbed a lethal amount of nitrogen. If he swam to the surface normally, the change in pressure would cause his blood to literally boil, a condition known as the bends, and he would die in agony. The rescue team had to bring down a specialized diving helmet, put it on him, and teach him how to breathe a special mixture of helium and oxygen. They slowly guided him out of the shipwreck, swam him to a specialized diving bell, and brought him to the surface. Once above water, Harrison couldn't even celebrate. He had to be locked inside a pressurized decompression chamber for another 2 full days, allowing the pressure in his body to slowly equalize to surface levels. Out of 12 crew members on the Jascon 4, Harrison Okene was the sole survivor. When he finally asked his rescuers how long he had been trapped underwater, he was stunned. He thought he had only been down there for 12 hours. Today, Harrison is still alive, and incredibly, he didn't let the trauma keep him away from the water. He actually went back to school, conquered his fears, and became a certified commercial diver himself. He survived the impossible, defying science, nature, and the odds, which is exactly why you should subscribe to InsightRiser to catch the next unbelievable true story.